Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Trail Talk High Pointing Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren. Today, we're going to speak with Jason McDonald, who some of you might remember from episode 66. Now, Jason is working on section hiking the Triple Crown. Jason also was featured in a story about a search and rescue in the White Mountains on Mount Madison, where he was trying to finish a portion of the Appalachian Trail when he broke his ankle and had to have a search and rescue team come out and get him. And it was a very harrowing story that we covered on this podcast. And if you don't know about it, I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 66. Jason also is a very resilient mountaineer, climber, hiker, and also human in general, as he has battled through cancer and has been able to train during his chemotherapy. So, Jason, it's an honor to welcome you back to the show, and we're going to talk about your Scandinavian high point today, but welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So, first of all, how are you doing? How are your cancer treatments going?
Very good. I had a 4-month checkup recently, which showed that I was in full remission. As you recall, though, my cancer is a bone marrow cancer that's going to be with me for life. Mm-hmm. And so having chemotherapy just grants me hopefully several years of remission before it'll redevelop and I'll have to go back in for more treatment. But right now I'm doing very well.
That's great news. That's so good to hear. And how has your training been going since your broken ankle?
It's been going pretty well. I was able to get back on skis at the end of March and actually get in several, like 8 ski days in the late spring and take my kids up a few times. So getting back on snow was nice because with the alpine ski boot, you have such good ankle support. It felt pretty good on my feet. So I could do a full ski day on the mountain and it felt pretty good. I've been biking a lot because I am training for the Leadville 100 mountain bike race, which is August 9th, which is really close.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just around the corner. And so I've had to be on the bike a lot, putting in a lot of miles, a lot of saddle time. So I hope I can finish that race. It's not the ideal situation for me to have a weak ankle, and unclipping from my mountain bike pedals is still a little dicey. But I've put in a lot of miles on the bike, and that's gone really well. As far as walking and hiking, I've been doing a lot of walking and some soft trail hiking, but I still can't run per se. My ankle is still just too weak for running, but I can walk, and I'm going to be getting back into backpacking here real soon.
That's great news. And I'll ask you more about the Leadville mountain bike race towards the end of the episode. That's very interesting. I didn't know you were doing that. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about the American Alpine Club grant that you were awarded recently and what that entailed?
Sure. So I've been a member of the American Alpine Club since 2003, and it's a great organization for climbers and mountaineers all over the country. And there's a lot of great benefits to being a member. One of the things that they offer annually is grant money to climbers for trips, like dream type trips that they want to do, and maybe it's outside of their financial wheelhouse, and the organization can give grant money through large donors and corporate sponsorship to climbers to let them fulfill their dreams. Yeah. And so one of the grants, I should say, is a Live Your Dream grant. And it's the one that I applied for last summer. And it was to climb Ojos del Salado in Chile, which is a high 22,000 foot peak. And the goal of that was, I titled it My Battle to Return to the Top, because I was recovering from my cancer, which had stripped me of my red blood cells, which pretty much prohibited me from going too high in altitude because I just didn't have the oxygen carrying capacity anymore. But with me going into remission and me working really hard to get back to the top, if you will, I received that grant from the American Alpine Club. And I was set to go in January of 2025 to Chile. And then, of course, I broke my ankle in late September. And that trip got canceled. However, the grant money still stayed with me. And I reallocated that grant into the battle to return to the top, Scandinavia,
Hmm.
because I already had planned to go to Scandinavia in May of 2025 before my ankle injury, and I wasn't going to cancel that trip. And so I still went, and it was early May this year. I went to Iceland, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And the goal was to climb two high points. The first one was Havandalshnúkur in Iceland, which is the highest peak in Iceland. It's just shy of 7,000 feet. And
Okay.
then I was going to, in Norway, climb Galdhøpiggen, which is the highest peak in Norway at 8,100 feet. And it's also the highest peak in all of Scandinavia. And I can go into more about how that trip came about and how it went
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. I just have a couple questions before we get into that. So, first of all, what do your doctors say when you tell them, I want to continue climbing these high peaks and doing these endurance events?
They're very supportive of my efforts and my dreams.
Hmm.
They haven't held me back from doing anything. They're very supportive of me wanting to do those things. And really, it's do what you can. If you feel good, do it.
Great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And regarding Ojos del Salado, that has been a peak that has fascinated me, I think just because of how extreme the Atacama Desert is in Chile, how dry it is. And Ojos del Salado, do you still want to do that in the future?
I am not going to.
Hmm.
I've whittled down my to-do list
Yeah,
just based on life and other factors, but I'm not going to reattempt Ojos del Salado, nor am I going to go back to Mexico and try to climb Pico de Orizaba again,
right.
which is where I first had my um, feelings of not being able to breathe. I've
Yeah,
just
and real
decided.
quick, can you remind listeners of what happened that made you go into the doctor and say something's not right?
Sure. So it was January of 2024. I was in Mexico climbing Pico de Orizaba, which is 18.5, and I made it to about 16.5. And base camp, by the way, is about 14.
Hmm.
So I'd only gotten up about 2,500 feet, and that was a huge struggle just to get to 16.5. I I was completely spent. My breathing was very labored, and I just didn't feel right. And it wasn't altitude sickness. I just felt like I wasn't getting any air in my lungs,
Hmm.
and I had to turn back, and I didn't summit. And I told my climbing partner, something's wrong with me, and I need to go to the doctor when we get back home. And I did when we got back to the States, and it led to blood tests, which led to more blood tests and my cancer diagnosis.
Hmm. I remember the conversation from our last episode where you said climbing Pico de Orizaba was probably a life-saving event.
Yes, I think so. Had I not been at 16,500 feet pushing myself to the limit, I probably wouldn't have recognized that something was wrong with me. Had I just
Right.
been home here in Denver doing mundane daily activities and not stressing my body to the max, I wouldn't have known that something was wrong. So I think I got a diagnosis like 20 years early
Yeah,
because I was pushing myself and climbing.
you're right. Well, now back to Norway. Why did you decide to go to Scandinavia and to Iceland for this grant?
Well, as you know, Scandinavia is beautiful. It's
Hmm.
it's got the land of glaciers and ocean and beautiful countrysides, and I always wanted to go to Scandinavia. That trip just happened to fall um, in what I called my matrix, which was like a 20-year plan of all the trips I wanted to do and climbs I wanted to do. I had plugged them into like a calendar to make sure that I'd get them done. And this just happened to be the year that Scandinavia was in the matrix. And so I wanted to start off by going to Iceland and climbing the highest peak, Havandalshnúkur. I actually hired a guide
Okay.
through Icelandic mountain guides and had paid the trip in advance. And luckily, I canceled only about 2 weeks before. Um, the trip to Iceland, and I was able to get all my money back. They really felt bad about my ankle injury, which was the prohibiting factor for me doing
Yeah.
the summit. I'd been working out really hard all spring, trying to get ready for Havanosnakur, because that's a hard climb. It's like a 13-hour day, and it's about 6,000 feet of climbing, vertical
Well,
climbing. So
okay.
that was going to be a long, hard climb, and I had to make sure that I was ready for it. So I did as much as I could this spring, but really in mid-April, I realized I wasn't going to be ready to do that climb. So I
Yeah.
canceled that, but I still went to Iceland, and I traveled the southern part of the country from coast to coast and just took in all the sights. I saw Havanosnakur, but I didn't
Hmm.
climb it. Um,
Yeah, and your pictures are beautiful. And for people watching on YouTube, I will include those pictures at the end of this video. They're incredible.
it was a fantastic country, and the Blue Lagoon and all the hot springs they have there, very nice.
Yeah. So you cancel Iceland. They were kind enough to understand your situation. So then you still decided to climb the highest peak in Norway and in Scandinavia.
Yes, and that one, it was kind of on a lark. I didn't know truly how hard Galdhøpiggen was going to be, if it was going to be easy or not. So I went to Norway. I flew to Oslo, sightseed around Oslo for a day or two, and then I went up to Lom, which is a nice little alpine village in the
Hmm.
national parks area of central Norway, and it's where the highest peaks in the nation exist. And so Lom was a great base camp for me for a few days, and I decided I wanted to go skiing at the Galdhøpiggen Summer Ski Center, which is on a glacier, and it's lift served. They've got a T-bar lift that takes you up about 1,300 vertical feet
Oh,
up this glacier. What I didn't know is that summer ski center pretty much lies at the base of Galdhøpiggen, the mountain itself. And taking that T-bar lift up 1,300 vertical feet pretty much gets you 1,300 vertical feet closer to the summit. And I didn't realize all
convenient.
those logistics, so I was actually there
Yeah.
and riding the lift up, and I get to the top of the lift, and I can see this little pyramid peak in the distance. And I'm like, is that Galdhøpiggen? Is that actually the mountain? And so I did a couple laps of skiing, and there was nobody there, by the way. It was like a Monday or something. It was a midweek, and I had the mountain to myself, except for there was a Italian national ski team doing some slalom work on the mountain, and so that was fun to watch. But
Yeah.
other than that, I was like probably the only citizen just skiing there.
It's amazing.
Um, so I dipped back into the lodge where I had rented my skis, and I wanted to kind of pick the locals' brain about climbing Galdhøpiggen. Like, how long does it take people? Is it, do I need an ice axe? Just basic stuff.
Hmm.
And I'd done some research, obviously, back home before the trip to find that stuff out. And it didn't seem like too much was needed. But I just wanted to double check with the locals. So I dip into the ski lodge, and I can't find anybody. I'm looking around, and there's nobody around for me
Hmm.
to ask and get intel. So I'm leaving, and I see this poster next to the exit, and it's a picture of the route up Galdhøpiggen with people climbing it. It's an old poster. It looked very dated. It was kind of faded, but it showed the route perfectly. And so I took a picture of it with my phone, and I used that as my map. And I was like, you know what? I've got these alpine ski boots on, rented alpine ski boots, these skis. I've got poles. I said, it's not going to get any better than right now to do this. And so I took the lift up one more time, and from the top, it was about a quarter-mile hike to this little weather station that's up top of this ridge. And that I felt was a good place to stash my skis. Because from there, it really wasn't great skiing. You kind of have to go another half mile on this rocky, snow-crusted ridge before there's kind of a drop-off. You drop probably 500-600 vertical feet down this snow slope onto this massive, wide, broad glacier. And you cross that glacier, and then you start the northeast ridge of Galdhøpiggen. And it's just this long ascending ramp. Not a very steep grade, but just steep enough to get your heart rate going.
Hmm.
And I didn't need crampons because the snow conditions in mid-May were just perfect. Like the toes of my snow boots were just digging in a couple inches each step. I
Hmm.
wasn't post poling, and I also wasn't like scraping for dear life, with no
Yeah.
purchase on the snow. It was just perfect. And I had the poles, um, and I had a rented ski helmet. So I made up the ramp. There was a few rock bands you go through on the way up. It wasn't just pure snow, but about an hour and 45 minutes from the top of the lift, I reached the summit of Galdhøpiggen, and beautiful, beautiful views. I had a great day up there. Blue skies. I took a little video, 360 at the top.
Hmm.
Uh, in the summertime, there was a little hut at the summit, and it was completely snow filled, so you couldn't even go in the hut when I
Wow.
was up there. But in the summer, and if you watch videos online, you can see this nice little uh, hiker's hut near the summit.
So I assume you
It
had
was
the
very,
summit to yourself.
I did. I didn't see anybody there. The descent was very nice too. I was able to glissade a bit. You had to be very careful on which sections you chose to do. Because again, I didn't have an ice axe, but I had these ski poles. So I had to make sure if I was going to glissade down a section, it was a section that didn't have a dangerous run out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too steep that I couldn't control a stop.
So when you get down, did you tell anybody at the base camp what you did?
Well, the funny thing is, I didn't start until about 12:15 in the afternoon. So that lift I took to get
Hmm.
to the top to start my climb, I didn't start till 12:15. And so I knew I was kind of pushing the time limit for when I needed to get back to return my skis, because they closed at 3 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock like we're used to here in Colorado. Ski resorts stay open till 4. They
Yeah.
closed at 3. And so I was giving myself only 2 hours and 45 minutes to do this up and back. Well, I was late. I was way past the time limit because it took an hour 45 to get up and about an hour and a half back. So I was
Okay.
a good half hour past closing time. So I ski down the glacier as fast as I can on my rented skis, and I get back to the lodge to return them, and it's locked.
Oh
They
no.
left. They just
They
left.
didn't wait to like fine you or anything.
They have an American on their mountain with their equipment that was rented, and they didn't bother to like make sure I came back.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you could have something bad could have happened up there.
So there's a little sign on the door, and it was a 12-digit phone number, Norwegian area code, and I couldn't dial it on my cell phone. And so I wanted to let somebody know, like, hey, I'm back, and I'm gonna leave my rented skis and stuff here at the lodge, like outside the
Mhm.
door, so they didn't think I just walked off with the stuff. Well, I couldn't call that number on the door, so I actually got one of those Italians. They were still around and
Oh,
spoke English, and their phone worked, and they called that number for me, and we were able to talk to an employee, and they said, "Yeah, just leave the stuff right there at the door." So
oh, that's cool. I would
I didn't
imagine.
I didn't have anybody else to really enjoy the moment with, but I think
Did you
that
tell the
Italian
Italians at least?
could tell that I was really proud of myself and had had a good time. Being late was worth it.
Oh, that's fun. I'm sure they would have enjoyed their poster being your guide.
Yeah.
So once you finish this climb, do you report back to the American Alpine Club? What are the updates that you're giving them with, since it is their grant that you received, what are the updates that you give them as far as your progress on the peak?
Sure. So one of the requirements of accepting the grant is you have to provide a trip report within 60 days of your return from the trip. And
Okay.
so I put together this photographic journey and storybook of my trip,
Hmm.
what got me there, how it went while I was there, and a thank you for allowing it to happen. And so, yeah, that trip report was one of the requirements. And if they want me to speak at any event, I'm at their
Yeah.
request.
So for listeners who are interested in this type of grant, obviously you have to be a member of the American Alpine Club, I would imagine, but what are the steps that they need to take after a membership in the American Alpine Club?
Sure. So there's a tab on their website for grants, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of different grants that they offer. There's grants for just women. There's grants for other communities. There's grants for just young people, like you have to be under, for example, 25 or something to get a certain grant. This
Okay.
Live Your Dream grant is open to anybody,
Wow.
and you just have to explain why it's like a dream of yours. And they anybody can apply for all these different grants if you're a member. They all have windows of opening and closing dates for the
Sure.
grants.
Hmm.
And so they may not be offered right now, but they could be opening soon. But they have closure dates because they're annual. And so the board reviews these grants and then grants the money on a continual basis.
What about the rest of Europe? Have you done any other high pointing?
Yes, in 2022, I went to Europe to do essentially the Via Alpina Trail by train. I don't know if you know the Via Alpina Trail, but it's about 1,500 miles. It's like the Appalachian Trail of the Alps, if you will.
Wow.
It starts in Monte Carlo and it goes all the way around through 8 different countries and finishes in Trieste, Italy, on the other side of the Alps. And so it takes in Monaco, France, Italy, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Germany, Austria, and Slovenia before
Wow.
finishing in Italy again. And so I knew I'd never have time to do 1,500 miles of hiking in Europe, but I figured I could do it by train and see the Via Alpina as close as I could to the
Hmm.
trail by train and make a high point endeavor of it and try to climb the high points of all 8 countries that the trail goes through. And
That's
so that was my
incredible.
goal. And I had a very ambitious, just 2.5 weeks to accomplish this.
Hmm.
And I was able to do 5 of the 8 country high points on that trip. Bad
Cool.
weather and other timing factors prohibited the other 3 peaks, but I
Okay.
was able to get 5 high points.
Which 5?
Monaco, which is the easiest. It's on a street, a crested hill
Oh, cool.
street where it backs up to France. Probably like 528 feet or something like that.
Okay,
But I
so
got
it's like
Monaco.
it's like they're Florida.
It is. It is very much like that. And then I was able to get Mont Blanc, which is the high point of France and Italy. And
Okay.
then I was able to climb the Zugspitze in Germany,
Hmm.
and I was able to do the Triglav in Slovenia.
Wow. Wow.
And
So,
then what I wasn't able to get was in Austria, the Grossglockner. I had horrible weather in Austria.
okay.
I was able to go to the national park there and see the glacier, but the cloud level and storm was preventing even seeing further up the mountain. I wasn't able to do Monte Rosa in Switzerland, so I did the Stockhorn instead, which is a sub-peak of the Monte Rosa group. It's about 11,000 and change. And the Stockhorn has an amazing view of the Matterhorn. So I have some of the
Hmm.
best pictures you've ever seen of the Matterhorn from the Stockhorn.
Wow.
But Monte Rosa I wasn't able to do because of a couple things. I didn't have a guide arranged, and I should have. I thought I would do it solo, but the problem was the weather was getting so warm. There was crevasse danger, and I'd heard trip reports in the Monte Rosa lodge of several people falling through crevasses,
Mm.
and they were roped, and so they were getting rescued out. But there was a lot of crevasse falls occurring, and I decided since I'm solo and I didn't have a guide, I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah. So you were without a guide then on all of those peaks, not just that one.
I had a guide on Mont Blanc,
Okay. Yeah.
and that really helped cut through all the red tape that's required on Mont Blanc. You have to stay in the huts, and the hut reservation system is kind of foreign to me. And so I
Hmm.
hired a guide, and they were able to get all the hut reservations in place. They know the route, so I wasn't going to have to be route finding on a mountain I've never been to before. It was well worth the money to hire a guide, and the climb of Mont Blanc was with the guide that I was going to do Ojos del Salado with.
Really?
Um, yes, he's Chilean,
Okay.
and he guides in the Alp summer and then the Andes summer. So he
Okay.
goes back and forth year round between the Andes and the Alps. Uh,
You
but he
know,
was
the
great.
reasons, yeah, the reasons that you said you hired a guide for Mont Blanc to skirt the red tape sound very similar to the reasons why some of the podcast guests get guides for American high points, like Whitney or Rainier. You know, if you don't win the lottery on Whitney, for example, that complicates things. With Rainier, if they don't get a permit, you can go with a guide and things like that. So it's interesting to see that that also applies in Europe.
Yeah, really popular places do have red tape.
Right. So did you plan that trip yourself, like on the
Yeah.
train and
Yeah.
the entire itinerary?
Yes, and that was quite a journey.
Yeah.
I was having dreams 2 weeks after the trip of train schedules running through my mind still, because that was such a headache getting all the trains organized
Yeah.
because I had lodging booked, and so you have to get to certain points on certain days and
Yeah.
do these climbs on certain days that you have planned. It was a logistic nightmare, but I put it all together and used like a Eurorail app on my phone to do all the trains. It worked out.
That's incredible. And then on that train, were you the only person on that trip who was getting off the train and then climbing mountains and then staying in the place and then getting back on the train and doing the next mountain? Or was that something that other people were doing?
I don't think anybody was doing exactly what I was doing.
Hmm.
I was really going bam, 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 bam on, 8 countries in 2.5 weeks with climbing in between. I don't think anybody was doing what I was doing, but you see a lot of people on trains who have mountaineering equipment, who are backpackers, a lot of climbers in the Alps, traveling by train too. But I think doing the Via Alpina like I did, I think that's a pretty unique thing. I don't know if anybody's tried doing that. Certainly
I
hitting the
haven't
high
heard it.
points of the 8 countries along the way.
So what was your favorite high point in terms of your experience climbing it?
Mont Blanc, I think Mont Blanc, because it was a 3-day climb for me too,
Okay.
whereas the others were all single-day climbs. Mont Blanc, I stayed in 2 different huts. You've got to go up and down the Grand Couloir, which is very dicey rock wall. Um, I had great weather, and so I had the most spectacular scenery in the Alps. And it
Yeah.
was the end of June. It was late June, and so everything was still very snowbound and just beautiful.
Wow. My husband was in Germany for work not too long ago. Actually, it was about a year ago right now. And he climbed Zug's Peak
Hmm.
in Germany. Is
Zug,
that how you say it?
Zugspitz.
Yes, yeah. And he sent me a video, or like we FaceTimed or something, from when he got to the top. And there's like a, I don't know, kind of like visitor center up there, I guess. And there was party music. I mean, it was like a club. It was like, and I was like, what is this? It's the summit of a mountain, but the vibes were a lot different than here.
Yeah, there's a massive tram that takes thousands of people up that mountain. And there's
Mm,
a large visitor center with the observation decks and bars and gift shops up just shy of the summit. So when you get to that visitor center, you have to do about 150 vertical feet of Via Ferrata style climbing to
yeah.
get to the summit. And the summit's actually kind of small. There's this
Okay.
big pole with a gold ball. It's pretty neat.
Okay.
But it's a little Via Ferrata route to get to the real summit.
Yeah. Yeah. He showed me pictures of that too. It looked really, really cool. The hike itself looked beautiful. I think he went in the fall, if I'm not mistaken, and sent me pictures from the hike. It looked really incredible. And I think he did take the tram down. Um, that's amazing. So, what else is on the docket for the rest of the year? This is climbing season. I know you have the Leadville. Is it the Leadville 100?
Yes, mountain bike
So
race.
we're all familiar with the ultra race in
Hmm.
Leadville. I think the listeners are. Can you talk about this mountain bike race? And I know that you're in Denver. Leadville's higher than Denver. What is that like training up there and racing?
Well, I haven't been training up there too much recently. All my training's kind of been here in the Denver area.
Okay.
But when I do go to Leadville, it's 10,000 feet, and you do feel a difference.
Yeah.
You just have to go a little slower. If you try going as hard as you do at lower elevations, you'll hit your max a lot quicker, and it's harder to get your heart back down. So you just have to pause and go a little slower and just realize you're not going to go as fast as you can at lower elevation. And
So
that's okay.
yeah. What is that race like compared to the ultra marathon there? Because I have seen a lot of documentaries of the Leadville 100. I think that's what it's called. I'm probably wrong. But, they have crews and it's like a multi-day thing, I think. Or at least it's overnight. I know that. What is the mountain bike race like compared to that?
So it takes place 2 weeks before the run.
Okay.
And believe it or not, there's some people that do both.
Oh,
Um,
I believe
but
it.
yeah, the courses are about 90% the same.
Okay.
They do vary some, but there's a lot that is the same course. And just like you can have support crews on the run race, you can have support crews on the bike race. There's different stops, like aid stations that are like little camps where there's camp chairs. You can get off your bike and get off your feet for a little bit and get food. And if you have a little support crew, they can give your legs a massage, give you an ice bath, whatever you need. So I plan on utilizing all those aid stations and getting off my feet, off the bike periodically to take little breaks because it's going to be a long day.
It sounds similar then to the run.
Yeah, it starts at
In
like
terms
6
of
a.m.
formatting.
Yeah, it starts at 6 a.m. and I think you've got 12 hours to finish.
Okay.
Officially finish.
So what made you want to do this mountain bike race?
Well, I actually tried getting in it through the lottery system several years ago, and I didn't get a lottery pick. So I kind of gave up on getting in the race for a while. And then I decided I wanted to do it. And so I looked into how to get in it outside the lottery. And there is a way to get in, kind of the back doorway. It's sponsored by Lifetime Fitness, which is a major health club corporation. And if you join Lifetime and you're a member for at least 6 months, you can get an entry that you have to pay for, but you'll get an entry slot. So I joined the Lifetime Fitness out here in Aurora and joined it for just the 6 months that was required to get my entry spot. And then I quit my membership. And so they got my money because it's not a cheap club to belong to.
Sure.
But I got my entry. The thing is, I got that 2 years ago, and then I got cancer, and I couldn't train, and so I deferred my entry another year, and then I break my ankle. So now I'm having to do it, and you can't defer it another time. You can only defer your entry once.
Okay.
So I have to do it this year, otherwise I lose, all that I've worked for. Okay. So even though I'm not at 100%, I'm going to still give it 100%.
That's fantastic. And when is it?
August 9th.
Perfect. Well, we wish you the best of luck. And then what else is coming up on the docket in terms of your section hiking? So you are working on section hiking the Triple Crown, and you're about done. What do you have left?
So I've got a little bit on all three. This month, in fact, this Thursday, I'm leaving for Montana, and I'm going to hike just 58 miles from Rogers Pass, Montana, up to Benchmark Campground. And next month in August, I'm going out to the Cascades, and I'm going to hike, I think it's about 70 miles on the Pacific Crest Trail from Snoqualmie Pass to Stevens Pass.
Wow.
And then in September, I go back to the Appalachian Trail and face my demons. And I'm going to hike about 80 miles. And that's going to be from Pinkham Notch, New Hampshire to Rangeley, Maine.
Wow.
So that's what's on the docket.
Which one of those three intimidates you the most? For me, it would be the Appalachian portion.
It is. It is. For me, too.
Well, you had different reasons. I mean, you had an experience there that that I hope nobody else ever has. Is it
Yeah.
for that or just the technicality of it?
It's the terrain. It's the most difficult terrain on your feet.
Yeah.
It's just not easy hiking. You go on the Pacific Crest Trail and it can be steep, it can be hot, but the trail is pristine and
Yeah.
it's not as difficult on your feet. The CDT, kind of the same thing. The terrain can be steep up and down, but the trail is still good. It's not rocky and super crazy. The Appalachian Trail is just no joke. It is
Mhm.
brutal on the body.
Yeah. So when will you anticipate being done with the Triple Crown?
So because of my injury, I had to push it back a year. So I was planning on finishing all three next year, and now it's going to be 2027.
Okay. And then I always have to ask people like what's next. But so after doing the Triple Crown, do you have any plans to do these kind of shorter through hikes like the Arizona Trail or the Long Trail in Vermont or the Colorado Trail, John Muir, High Sierra, something like that?
So I've done the Arizona Trail and the Hayduke Trail, which are popular trails out here in the West,
Yeah.
by motorcycle. I have a
No
dirt
way.
bike. Yeah, again, I couldn't find, like the Via Alpina, I couldn't find time to do another long trail on foot. And I
Hmm.
thought about mountain biking the Arizona Trail because that's a pretty popular option as well if you don't want to walk
Yeah.
it. And I thought, I'll motorcycle it. That'll be better. I can do it in a week.
I
And
didn't
so I
know that was like allowed or even a thing.
So you can't motorcycle the actual trail where it goes through wilderness, but
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of the trail that's not in wilderness. It's on like just Jeep roads, um, 4x4 trails, national forest,
Hmm.
that you can ride motorized vehicles on. All the stuff that is, of course, like single track, that's through wilderness. Yeah, I have to find detours, and I mapped this all out in advance so I knew my route, and I'd parallel the trail as best as I could on really fun, scenic byway Jeep trails. But I was
No
able to
way. So
go.
what were those sections
Which sections are you
that you
referring
had
to?
to take a detour?
There's a lot of wilderness
Probably Mount
zone.
Lemon, right?
Mount Lemon, I was able to take the back route up that
Okay.
mountain.
Yeah.
And it's got a really nice Jeep road that goes up the back of that mountain.
Okay.
Not the side that faces Tucson, but I guess that'd be the north side of Mount Lemon.
Okay.
Has a great road. And I was going southbound. So
Oh,
when I
okay.
summited Mount Lemon, I took the Mount Lemon Road down to Tucson.
Right.
It's a fantastic trail. I'd recommend it to everybody. And you can do it via foot, mountain bike, and now you can motorcycle it. I
Yeah.
should like publish my route so people know how to do it by motorcycle if they choose to, because it was really something. And just to quickly add to that, I started from the south rim of the Grand Canyon. I didn't
Okay.
start from the Utah border. I started at the south rim of the Grand Canyon and I went south as best as I could along the trail to Mexico. I did the little hike to the little marker that's about a 2 mile hike from the road that you do have to do on foot to get to the border. And then I came back and I rode a different, more scenic, like tourist route through Bisbee and things like that, going
Yeah.
back north to my truck at the south rim of the Grand Canyon. And then the next year, I wanted to link that up with the Hayduke Trail. And the Hayduke Trail goes down to the Grand Canyon. I don't know if you know that, but
Hmm.
so I essentially linked the Hayduke Trail and the Arizona Trail via the Grand Canyon. And I did the
Wow.
Hayduke Trail via motorcycle as well. And same thing as the Arizona Trail. You can't motorcycle all of the Hayduke Trail because it goes through like national parks. It
Hmm.
goes through a lot of wilderness. But finding Jeep roads through southern Utah is not difficult to
Right.
parallel the Hayduke Trail. And so it was a fantastic ride. And I went all the way to Zion from Moab and then came back to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, left my motorcycle there, and I hiked the rim to rim to where I had a
Wow.
truck waiting for me at the south rim. And so I was able to link the two trails that way.
That is so cool. That's amazing. Again, a logistical feat.
It was a lot of logistics.
Wow. So you've already done the Arizona Trail. What other shorter through hikes do you plan on doing after the Triple Crown?
So the John Muir Trail I've done except for the last 20 miles, which is from Tuolumne Meadows down to Yosemite Village. And I want to finish that little 20-mile section. And I'm probably going to do it with my daughter next year, do a little 2-day backpacking trip. And then the Colorado Trail I've already done. There's some really fun trails like the George S. Michelson Trail through the Black Hills of South Dakota. Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't.
It's just over 100 miles, and it's one of those rails to trails funded trails that used to be a rail line through the Black Hills. And they turned it into this really nice dirt road that's just perfect for walking and running and mountain biking. And it's just over 100 miles, and it runs north-south along the spine of the Black Hills. And I did that in 2 days on a mountain bike several years ago, and that was one of the most beautiful trails. So I'd recommend that to listeners if they're looking for something that's not one of the big major trails that are often talked about.
And it's called the George Michelson? Yeah,
the George S. Michelson Trail. This injury has been more difficult for me than the cancer, just because it took so much from me of what I was able to do. And I think what people are able to do is so much a part of their identity that losing the ability to do things that I was accustomed to took more of my identity away from me than the cancer did.
I was not expecting you to say that.
Well, the cancer's with me for life, but with the chemo, I'm able to bounce back and feel good again. And even through chemo, I was able to hike and do things that I was still used to doing. The ankle injury was a game changer in it. It made me go from a soaring eagle to a caged bird. And that was so hard on the psyche. And I just want listeners to understand when you're faced with hardships like that, you still are who you are, and you just have to make changes to your daily habits, and that's okay. Life goes on, and just make the most of what you've got and be thankful for what you've got, because it could always be worse.
And thank you for that message. That's very important, because it can all be taken away, the physical body, but it's like, who are you outside of that?
Yeah, it's about the journey and the experiences that you have along the way. And I am so pleased with what I've been able to do for the last 35 years of doing what I do, that I wouldn't trade anything. Everything's been a blessing, and the experiences that I've had fill my mind with riches, and I'm a rich man because of that.
Well, Jason, thank you for your inspiring story, and congratulations on your Scandinavian summit and for your cancer remission. And we're all hoping the best for you, and good luck in the mountain bike race in Leadville.
Thank you very much.